How stupid is Matt Iglesias and how stupid is Vox? This stupid. Vox.com, the real national emergency is Trump's incompetence. Iglesias believes this. Quote, the crisis on display over the past couple of months is the total incompetence of Donald Trump. He has no understanding of how to set a policy agenda or get anything done. End quote. Why am I posting this from an article a year old? Because Vox linked me to it. Now, another article from Vox. What Trump has done to the courts. Explained. Vox.com. Quote, it's tempting to assume that Trump's judicial appointees share the goonish incompetence of the man who placed them on the bench, but this assumption could not be more wrong. End quote. So Trump is incompetent, but look who Vox says Trump chooses as judicial nominees. Quote, his picks include leading academics, Supreme Court litigators, and already prominent judges who now enjoy even more power within the judiciary. End quote. How is it possible that an idiot makes great choices? Quote, before he became president, Trump promised to delegate the judicial selection process to the Federalist Society, a powerful group of conservative lawyers that counts at least 4 Supreme Court justices among its members. End quote. The stupidity of leftism is shown in the fact that leftists don't comprehend delegation. Leftists think that centralized control is smart. Obama ran the most centralized presidency on record. And he did great, didn't he? In reality, of course, delegating authority to others is smart. Delegation creates force multipliers. The Green Berets don't go to foreign countries and fight for them. The Green Berets train foreign troops to fight like Green Berets. By delegating, Trump has created uncountable Trumps. This frees Trump up to fix everything. Trump is showing us that all previous presidents were slackers. They were men of their respective eras, so that explains a lot of it. But Trump is 73 years old. He's exactly like Ferdinand Foch, the greatest general in World War I. Despite his age, Foch instantly comprehended the implications of the new weapons, and he fought tooth and nail for the French to change. The initial French supreme commander was Joseph Joffre. He was unreachable. Joffre was known as Papa Joffre. He had the biggest paunch on record because he ate 7-course meals every day. Here's Joffre on the left talking to Foch, who was 1 year older. Foch exercised daily, link in the description. Joffre never listened. After Foch gave Joffre a 1-hour briefing on why the French needed to change their artillery strategy, Joffre got up. You always liked your little guns, didn't you? Joffre said and walked out. Joffre believed in bayonet attacks. As a result, French soldiers were sent against machine guns and artillery and died by the millions. Finally, Joffre was fired and Foch took over. He made the French into the best army of the war. The French trained us in everything, but before Foch, the French army mutinied. There's a famous story about Foch. He and a war correspondent were being driven down a road and they saw a French firing squad marching a man to his death. Foch ordered the car stopped and he asked why the man was being executed. He'd fallen asleep at his post and didn't see a German raiding party approach, so Foch took the prisoner aside and explained to him that falling asleep at his post was very serious. Quote, we depend on men like you to not let us down, Foch said. That's why you've been sentenced to death. But with your execution, you not only atone, you show others how vital it is to do your duty. Your death will inspire others to never give up. You are a very important man. The firing squad resumed the march, but now the prisoner held his head up. He was no longer afraid. When he got back in the car, Foch filled his pipe and lit it. The war correspondent said it was the only time he ever saw folks' hands shaking. World War I was a prolonged catastrophe. Only a tiny handful of military leaders knew how to win the war, but it took them forever to clear out the losers. And then, 20 years later, we had another world war. Trump put an army of Trumps in his administration so that we won't revert as soon as his second term is up. Leftism is almost done. It's because leftists can't think, or rather, they refuse to think. Did you know that military leaders said that the aircraft was useless? When Billy Mitchell proved that bombers could sink any naval vessel, the Army court-martialed him. Air power is the only reason we no longer have battleships. The Japanese sank the Prince of Wales and the Repulse using land-based bombers, and the British were stunned. And the British sank the Bismarck on its first sortie using biplane torpedo bombers. Trump is a military historian. He knows exactly how to win. Rigidity of thought is a lethal vulnerability. Millions of soldiers, sailors, and airmen died because their leaders were shackled by rigidity of thought. So once again, give yourself props for electing Trump. You were smart. All of you will be smart on November 3rd. I have full faith in you. The end.